Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, warshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and once again I have let the Italian Destroyer Learn to Play series get away from me a little bit, and we're going to pick things up again here with Tier 8's Vittorio Cuniberti. I'm going to have to imagine, you're going to have to imagine my hands flailing around while I do that, because that's the only correct way to pronounce Italian ship names in World of Warships. Now, if you remember Tier 7's Luca Tarigo video, I was highly complimentary. Luca Tarigo is, in my opinion, one of the best Tier 7 destroyers currently in the game. Once you wrap your brain around the ship's particular little quirks, what she does well, what she doesn't, kind of her role in a game. The good news I have for you is that Vittorio Cuniberti is more of the same. The gun layout is a little different. The hull has some different characteristics, but by and large, if you enjoyed Luca Tarigo and that style of play at Tier 7, you're going to find yourself with much of the same tools and the same kind of play style here at Tier 8. Where you're going to struggle a little bit, and this is just Tier 8 Destroyer in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, is your matchmaking is going to start to work against you even more than it did down at Tier 7. And there's some factors that play into that in terms of how Cuniberti's hull works, kind of, her various characteristics that make that a little more challenging, even up here. So, unfortunately, it's a side effect of the ship. And there's one kind of glaring, irritating weakness that we'll talk about when we get there that you're definitely going to have to learn to work around a little bit. But the bottom line is that Cuniberti remains an excellent boat, but starts to suffer from slightly more challenging matchmaking, slightly more challenging opponents, right? Radar becomes much more prevalent in the higher tiers than it is when you're a Tier 7 destroyer. And so there are some challenges that Cuniberti has to face that Tarigo did not, but that does not take away from how good this ship is. So let's take a tour around and show you what I'm talking about. Starting as we do with survivability, you can see here 20,500 hit points is where Tarigo is starting in terms of what you're seeing on my screen. Now, that's not her base health. That is, of course, fully buffed up. Her base health is a little over 16,500. This is, with the new 5% flag that you get to add to her health, plus, of course, survivability expert on the captain. 21,000 HP, basically, 20.5 is pretty solid for Tier 8, right? But it's not anywhere close to best in tier, right? In a world where the German Spa Cruiser line exists, pretty much everybody's going to suck hind wind on this one. There are some other serious threats in terms of health pool in this tier, right? I'm looking at you, Fantask. Even Akazuki, right, has this kind of health pool before you start buffing her. So one of the big advantages of the Italian Destroyer line up to this point, right, 5, 6, and 7, you typically tended to have more hit points than many of your opponents, and it was a thing you could be a bit of a bully. Starting here at Tier 8, especially with the matchmaking brackets you're going to get, you have to be a little more cautious. You have to be much more cognizant of the types of opponents you're going to find yourself in when you zone into a game in Cuniberti. If you look across and you see a Kagero, okay, that's something that you probably can bully. If you look across and see a Habarovsk, that is something that you really do not want to tangle with unless you are absolutely forced into it and have no other choice. So health pool, still an advantage of the line, but let's say less so than previously. Armor, again, we always LOL when you get to Destroyer armor. There's nothing to be excited out here. You have 19 mils throughout the hull, and you've got some, 13 mils in the superstructure. You're going to get destroyed. You don't even have enough armor to resist the little European 120mm pop guns that ships like Uland and Split get, so I wouldn't even worry about it, right? You're going to take full pins. You're going to get smacked around. Try not to get dead. You're a destroyer. That's just the reality of the world you live in. Maneuverability and concealment. Now, the good news is that you are still Italian. These are things, at least maneuverability, let's say, is things that you do really well. You see there on the right-hand side of your screen, you're seeing a 41 knot top speed. That is with the speed flag. Base speed on this ship is 39 knots. That is not best in tier, right? Again, you've now reached the tier with Le Fantasque and Le Terrible, right? And the goofy Frenchies who were just like speed hold on, let's go for speed, right? So the Italians are fast, but they are not the fastest. Even Kiev over in the Russian line is about 3 knots faster than you on the baseline. But the things that you want to be chasing down, the ships that you want to prey against, I'm looking at you, American destroyers. I'm looking at you at, well, most Japanese torpedo boats, those kinds of things, you are faster than them. We were talking about Kagero earlier, a relatively easy gunfight for you, truth be told, 35 knots. You have a notable speed advantage over the types of targets that you should be pursuing. I think one of the great ways you could classify Cuniberti is you can be a big fish in the sea depending on the matchmaking, but you need to understand that there are bigger fish out there and you need to learn to recognize them and avoid them if possible. I think that's a really, really good way to approach your time in Cuniberti, much more so than you've had with Mistrale, Avieri, and Luca Tarigo up to this point. 650 on the turning circle, 3.9 on the rudder shift. I mean, they're not amazing. These are not amazing numbers, but at the same time, the numbers don't tell the whole story. We've been singing this song about the Italians the whole way through, and it's still valid here. The ship handles very well. Does she turn on a dime? No. Are there ships that turn better or faster in this tier? Yes. Does she handle well? Again, yes. I'll just keep saying it. The ship handles a bit like a sports car, and at these kinds of speeds, you'll be shocked at the kinds of turns you can get away with. So maneuverability absolutely remains a strong suit of this line. Don't discount it. Maximize it. Learn how to get use out of it. Now, earlier I hinted that there was a giant kind of glaring error, well, I'll say error, flaw. Flaw is the word I'm going to use. Flaw in Cuniberti's technical values, and here it is. This concealment, 6.6 on the surface, is a full stealth rig Cuniberti. This is a huge, huge handicap of playing this ship. Just about. Remember, we're talking about you have more speed than all the things that you want to hunt down and murder, right? Well, guess what? Just about all of the things that you want to hunt down and murder can see you coming well in advance. That is its own particular quirk, to put it lightly. So, this 6.6 detection on the surface is at tier 8 is bad. Like, it's already. Again, it's not worse than tier, okay? You know, again, split exists in some of these other boats, and certainly the spa cruisers, Merkur doesn't suffer this problem, but certainly as you get up to Schultz and Elbing in that particular branch, you will have that problem. But the bottom line is that this is something you're going to struggle with, and it's compounded by another factor we're going to talk about later on when we get to consumables. How do you work around this? Truth be told, you've already learned this lesson a little bit, right? When you played the 5, 6, and the 7, we talked about how the detection in those tiers was subpar, but not abysmal. In other words, if you found yourself in a situation where you were off by yourself and you were facing relatively even-tiered destroyers, very commonly, you would be able to have rough parity in terms of detection with them. They might spot you, but only be like 200-300 meters. At the kinds of speeds you're moving, you probably will eventually stumble into them. Here at tier 8, you no longer suffer from this problem. There are things in this matchmaking bracket that will outspot you by over 1,000 meters. That is a massive gap that you have to try and bridge. How do you overcome it? In previous videos, we've talked about playing behind friendly destroyers, using them to spot for you and just sort of backing them up a little bit, almost like, again, like the German Spa cruisers play, like a little bit of kind of a pocket light cruiser. Cuniberti has to lean on that very, very heavily. And it's one of the things that makes playing these ships in random battles very challenging. If you're going to div up with friends, okay, if you're going to look at your buddy and he's going to take out, I'm going to keep picking on Kagero. If he's going to take out his Kagero, he has some of the best spotting available in the entire tier in terms of detection bubble. So if he's going to get caught out by another destroyer, he's got you backing him up 600-800 meters behind him, whatever that distance is, to say, hey, let's murder something together, okay? And the two of you will make a fabulous team. But if you are by yourself, maximizing an Italian destroyer can become very difficult. It requires a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill, a little bit of reading the map correctly. And there are going to be games that Matchmaker just dumps on you, and you're just like, well, I'm the only tier 8 destroyer. I have a 6/6 detection. The only other destroyer in the game is an Elbing, and he's on the other side of the map. What the hell am I going to do? Those are the kinds of games that are very challenging in these ships, and you better get used to it now, right? You're going to have to prepare for it now because it is not going to get better if you continue up this line. We'll talk more about that when we get to Tier 9 Adriatico, okay? But the bottom line is that the detection is a huge handicap of this ship. And it's not something that can be mitigated. It's just a hard stat baked into the hull. Yeah, you're just gonna have to play smarter. Like I said at the beginning of the line, these ships are not destroyers for newbies. These are not new player friendly ships. They're fun, but they require you to come in. They require you to kind of come into the ship with an understanding of spotting mechanics, destroyer play, and a desire to do something different or learn something more or expand your repertoire, as it were, in destroyers. And there will be challenges, and here's one of them. Concealment, a big problem. Now, the good news is main battery. This is where things don't look quite so bad. Cuniberti, for the first time, has a super firing pair up forward, right? I've got 4 barrels over the bow. Gone is the midships turret, and then back aft, I have another double barrel. This is a nice, really comfortable gun arrangement, right? Almost all the ships that have had extra guns up to this point, again, I'm looking at Avieri and Adriatico, have had that goofy midships turret, right? Down here where you see these AA guns, there was like a turret in here somewhere with like a barrel or 2. So you had like 2 over the bow, 2 amidships, 2 aft, that kind of thing. This turret arrangement is much more player-friendly. This is absolutely one of the advantages of the ship, in the sense of if you find yourself in a gunfight against something that doesn't look very good, or a gunfight that you're particularly concerned about your health pool, and you should always be concerned about your health pool, but if you need to, let's just say, you can always give your opponent the narrowest profile of your ship available and still have 2/3 of your firepower available over the bow. That is not an insignificant advantage. It is one of the advantages of this particular hull design. There are going to be times you're going to have to man up and give them everything, right? And truth be told, the gun angles off this stern turret are pretty good, right? There's only a narrow gap here. You see this forward mast just forward of the turret. There are a couple of places in here, I'd say maybe probably 10 to 15 degrees off of either side of the bow that this stern turret can't fire. But you don't have to show a ton of side, a ton of angle to get all 6 guns to action when you need to. That's an advantage for sure. You're going to need it. Rate of fire. This is, again, better than we saw down at Adriatico at 7, but not as amazing, right? You see there the SAP damage, 171,000. This is really, really good. Like, this is not Akizuki good, but it's competitive, okay? You're getting a 6-second reload on a 10.3 kilometer range. We're going to talk more about range when we get to modules, okay? But 10.3, I believe, and let's just double check. Is that max? That's max range. Okay, yeah, that's max range. That's what I thought. I just wanted to double check. Yeah, so max range 10.3. Again, you're going to be firing mostly SAP at things. It's something that shows you bow on, or it's a battleship or whatever. You've got the HE available, but it should not be your primary go-to. The guns remain very, very good. They're fabulous for murdering destroyers. They do exactly what you want them to do in those kinds of engagements. But the gun layout is an advantage over what Torpedo had down at Tier 7, what you've been dealing with up to this point. So remember that. Take advantage of it when the situation requires it. Torpedoes. All right, so here's where things start to improve, kind of. Down at Torpedo, you had 2 triple barrels on a 70-second reload. Here at Cuniberti, I have 2 quad barrels, tubes, quad tube launchers, and they are on a 90-second reload. The Torpedoes are virtually the same. 10,000 alpha damage, 56 knots, 1.1 the detectability. The advantage here is I get another 2 kilometers of range. You see there 12 kilometers. Down at 7, if you recall, you had 10-kilometer torpedoes. I'm going to sing the same song I've been singing about the Italian destroyers the whole way. Don't forget your torpedoes. Fire them often. Do not expect much. The speed is what really hurts you here, right? You're now at a tier where you will find opposing ships that can do 50 plus knots in short stretches, and your torpedoes only go 56. That's not terribly encouraging. Now, granted, the ships that go those kinds of speeds are very, very. It's a very, very small number of your possible opponents. But the point remains, right? You're not going to get work out of these torpedoes. You're not going to get a lot of work out of these torpedoes in most situations. Only the most brain dead of battleship captains are going to lumber into these things, and it will happen on occasion, right? Don't forget about them. Use them, but temper your expectations. Torrigo, Cuniberti, these ships are never going to be torpedo boats. Do yourself a favor. Never build an Italian destroyer. Well, okay, never build a tech tree Italian destroyer for torpedo reload or torpedo speed or all those kinds of things. They're just, you're kind of, the idea is you look at some of these captain skills and it's like, oh, I want to shore up this weakness of the ship by investing in this thing. No, don't do that on this line. Always, always, always trying to maximize your main battery. And if there are ways, if you have points left over laying around that you literally have nothing else to do and you feel like putting them in the torpedoes, okay, fine. But like in general, this is not a strength of the ship and it's not ever going to be. So just don't even worry about it. So they're here. They're decent, but yeah, not a strength. Depth charges. Again, as we've been saying, these are more than enough to do what you need to be doing. The 3200 on the depth charges, of course, is not quite as good as you would find over in the Americans, the Brits, or the Japanese, where the things top out around 5,000. But 3200, like mid 3000s, is pretty comparable to where the French are, and you can get good work out of these depth charges. The other nice thing, again, we've mentioned it before, I'll continue to mention it, the crawling smokes that you get as an Italian destroyer mean that should you find yourself with the opportunity to prosecute an out-of-position submarine that might require you to move a little too close to somebody else, you can always pop a smoke screen and continue to chase them at full speed and lay patterns over their head, while, again, presumably the opponents can't see you, or radar notwithstanding and that sort of thing. So the Italian destroyers, again, I'll keep hitting this, are surprisingly decent submarine hunters and chasers should the situation allow for it. It's not what you do best, but it's definitely not something that you should discount or forget about should the situation present itself, i.e. the opposing submarine does something uniquely dumb. You should probably go take advantage of it, and you have the tools to do so. A defense. Yeah, you might as well just leave this off. Like, this is not exciting. If memory serves, okay, so your air detectability is 2.6. Your guns actually go out to 3.5. So yeah, you're gonna want to keep your AA off most of the time. It's gonna shoot down fighters over your head. It'll get the occasional bomber. It's Italian destroyer AA. It's garbage. You're not gonna get anything serious out of this, right? It feels bad. These 20mm guns are really kind of gnarly looking though. Like, look at these things. Like, that's terrifying, right? They look awesome. And the modeling work gone into putting those in the game is really cool. But, like, do they do a lot? I mean, nah, not so much. Not really the strong suit of the ship. So keep your A off most of the time. Use it to pop fighters over your head and get on with your day. Okay, let's talk about consumables first, because that's the easiest discussion we can have on this screen. You have the same three consumables that you have had up to this point on the predecessors. You have a damage control party, you have the exhaust smoke generator, and you have emergency engine power, right? 25% boost to your speed for nearly, the way I have this ship configured, nearly a full minute. That is crazy. You can zoom around the map with this kind of buff. Now let's talk about kind of quantities of these consumables. All right. As you can see, I'm still only looking at 3 smokes. This has been a thing in the line. They start you off down at tier 5 with 3 and 3. And at tier 6, I think you move up to 3 and 4, something like this. And at tier 7, I think you get 3 and 6 finally. I've got the same numbers, I believe, as I did down at Torrigo. Actually, I'm going to take a quick peek. What was Torrigo? Was it 3 and 6? It is 3 and 6. That's what I thought. Okay. So you have the same quantities, but you're going to run into the same issue. Only having 3 exhaust smokes is a massive, massive detriment to the maximizing this ship. This is one of the things I hinted at earlier, right? We talked about the concealment being a problem. Coupled with this, the concealment is a huge problem. If you had just a handful, like even if you just got 4 smokes, I think it would be even just that much better. You have to be very, very cognizant, smart, and judicious about when you use these smokes because you only have 3. So much so that there might even be value in taking the superintendent skill. Now, I don't know that I'd recommend it. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But if you find yourself just really, really yearning for that extra smoke, superintendent probably worth choosing for you. The engine powers, I find myself, this was recently buffed. Only a few months ago, Wargaming came through and they cut the cooldown time on this. It had been 160 seconds base. They cut it back to 120 seconds. Now you can find yourself actually using 4 or 5 of these in a game, depending on, again, your positioning and the roles you find yourself trying to fill. That's really nice, and it means that I'm still trying to train my brain to not be overly conservative with when I use these. I had a very, very good player on EU. I was having a conversation. Well, I was really asking for help with the top end of this line. And one of the recommendations that he made was always have one of these available. Like usually you don't want to use both of these at the same time. Have either the smoke or the speed boost available for escapes, throwing off people's aim, whatever. And I think that's good advice. And especially here, as you start running into very tough opponents, you're going to see Des Moines in this ship. That's terrifying. You really don't want to take something like that on, given the option. So having at least one of these available at any given moment as an oh crap button is a good idea. So try not to pair them together at the same time, because when you do that, you're going to be out of them for, this guy's got a 90-second reload the way I've got this ship configured. This guy's still nearly 2 minutes. That's a long time to go without some kind of, help me button. And these would be really good. So consumables, no change from the previous tier, but I'd say how you utilize them, much more critical here at tier 8. Let's talk about signal flags. Pretty straightforward, right? Charlie Kilo, you want the extra health. I'm running India Yankee. I don't know why. I can take that off. I'm running the flags that boost fire chance and flood chance because I'm a destroyer, not because I'm really particularly expecting to get a lot out of them. You definitely want X-Ray Papa Unit 1. This increases the duration you're going to get out of your exhaust smoke generator. 100% run this. Definitely run November Foxtrot. Reduces the cooldown on the consumables. Definitely run Sierra Mike. You definitely want the extra speed. So for my money, the four base flags that I would run on any Cuniberti build: Charlie Kilo, Sierra Mike, November Foxtrot, and X-Ray Papa. You want those 4. Anything else that you choose to add is kind of just extra. Like you're probably, I could take off the fire chance and leave the flood chance maybe, but even then, I'm just not going to. You could run the ship like this and be perfectly fine. Okay, upgrades. Main armament's pretty standard here back in slot 1. Not really many anything else. I don't know that I recommend Damage Control Party. I think main armaments is fine. Slot 2, I like the engine boost mod. 30% more action time on that consumable is really amazing. If you don't have the coal for this, engine room protection is the easy choice. Don't take damage control. Here in slot 3, if you have to make a choice between spending coal for engine boost or spending coal for smoke generator, personally, I believe that spending the coal on the smoke generator mod here in slot 3 is a better choice, okay? I can get this smoke generator up to over 30 seconds of runtime. That is really nice. And there are times that you're really going to be glad for it. So that's my choice. However, if you don't have the coal for it, I think main battery mod 2, perfectly good. I think aiming systems mod 1, also perfectly good. So that when you're actually putting shells on target, they are grouped together better. You should theoretically be landing more damage overall. Propulsion mod 1, I think, is the right choice here. I don't think steering gears get you anything. You definitely don't need damage control system in slot 4. Depth charges is not terrible, but I don't think it's necessary, right? You're putting down 10 bombs in a stick. This would give you 2 more sticks. I don't think that's necessary. I think you're fine. And in slot 5, I think you're crazy to run anything but concealment. But that's going to lead into a larger discussion. So let's have that now. Previous videos, like Kagero at tier 8, we've talked about the importance of gun bloom, right? In terms of when I fire my main battery guns, my detection radius immediately increases to whatever the maximum range of my main battery is. Now, In the tier 5, 6, and 7 boats of this line, your gun range was so crappy that you pretty much were forced into taking the mod 2 here to increase to buff your gun range by 10%. You pretty much had to do that and pair it with concealment expert on the captain to get it so that your gun range was longer than your detection radius. On the 5, 6, and the 7, that is a thing. Here at tier 8, not so much. And it leaves you with some interesting possibilities in terms of how you build the ship. We know that a full stealth rig is 6.6. That's as low as I can go. But my base gun range, right? Everything else, I take off strip down everything else, 9.4 kilometers. In fact, even if I take out the concealment module, my gun range remains 9.4. My detection is 7.4. So I don't recommend doing this, but you have this option available to you. So if you wanted to look at one of these other things here in slot 5, like Consumables mod, to give you even more duration on your smoke and your speed boost, you could. I don't think steering gears is necessary, but again, if you wanted to play around with it, it's a viable build. I would not do torpedo lookout. This is not a good one for destroyers, okay? I think concealment is the right way to go, but I'm trying to present you with the realization that at tier 8, there are lots of different ways that you can build a Cuniberti and still get good value out of it, okay? If you decide to stick with the full concealment build, I still think there is a very strong case to be made for never taking the gun range upgrade. Leaving your gun range capped at 9.4 really maximizes what you are meant to be out on the field doing, murdering opposing light units. By taking the gun range buff here for the module increase, right? By investing XP and cash in this, you are basically saying, I want to be a little more of a generalist. I trust myself that when all the opposing destroyers are dead, I want to be able to engage bigger targets at longer ranges, okay? Is that a bad thing? No, that's simply a choice that you make. This is up to you. If it were me, learning to play these ships for the first time, I would not invest in the Mod 2 gunfire control. Don't take this for a while. Stick with the base range, run full concealment. Get comfortable playing Cuniberti this way. In fact, I would go so far as to say, grind out Cuniberti playing that way, all things being equal. Unlock Adriatico, unlock all of the modules, okay? Now, once having done that, I would encourage you, before you invest credits to buy Adriatico, take off the concealment module. Put something else in this slot. Doesn't matter what. Ship consumables, whatever. Run the gun range upgrade. Now you're running 7.5 detection, 10.3 gun range. Try playing the ship in this configuration before you spend money on the next ship in the line. Because Adriatico at tier 9 and Regolo after her are at tier 10 are radical departures from what you've been playing up to this point. You need to prep yourself for this, okay? It is entirely conceivable that if you don't enjoy playing the ship in this alternate configuration where it's more detectable with higher range, that you might just want to stop here and never unlock Adriatico and never keep going, okay? We'll talk more about that at tier 9. But I would encourage you to try the ship in a higher detection, longer range build and see what you think, okay? Play around with it. If you like it, then you're probably going to like Adriatico. If you don't, then you need to understand that by spending the money to unlock Adriatico, you are going to be very frustrated and beating your head against the wall with that hull. And you need to prep yourself for what's coming. Or you need to have the free XP lying around to skip that pain and move straight to the tier 10. Okay? So, Cuniberti is offering you a choice. You need to, I would highly encourage you to take advantage of that choice while you're here before you invest any more time, cash, or XP on this line to try out alternate builds of Cuniberti that are less detectable and have longer gun range. Then decide for yourself whether or not you want to keep going, okay? Because it absolutely changes everything. Like the entire line of ships plays radically different starting next tier. So give it a shot. Do a little sample for yourself now. Commander skill build. There's some things in here that you're probably going to go, that figures. And some things you're going to go, what the hell? Okay, so For starters, my normal default that I recommend for people, right, is preventative maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, and concealment expert. Almost any destroyer, that's where I say, hey, you should put 10 points into that right away. I've sort of ditched preventive maintenance in this build because I've taken 3 4-point skills. And in fact, now I'm realizing it, my gun range is completely screwed because of this commander build. So let me send a reserve. There we go. I had not realized I'd done that. I was absolutely testing this my goofy suggestion about gun range, right? So there we go, 7.8. So yeah, it is still possible, right, to have 7.4 and 7.8 detection here. Yeah, so there we go. So that's, so either way, you can still get there. But the bottom line is that definitely check the ship that way. I didn't realize I'd maximized it all the way. I forgot I'd been doing that. What I've done, of course, is grease the gears, last stand, survivability expert, concealment. I think that's a great place to start. Adrenaline rush, yes, you're going to get damaged. This is a fabulous skill. After that, I've taken 2 4-point skills. One is main battery and A expert for the extra gun range, and dazzle over here on the far right. Now, dazzle is a very polarizing skill, okay? A lot of folks will tell you that this skill is amazing. A lot of folks will tell you that this skill is crap. I was playing around with it just to try it here. I think, actually, let me send this to reserve. Do I have, I feel like I have another Cuniberti captain in here. Yeah, this is the guy. This is the build that I was using before, before I was messing around with how do I make this ship look like Adriatico. Okay, so I guess technically I've got two builds. Let's talk about the base build while you're grinding out the ship. What do I recommend? My basics here are as always, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Preventative maintenance, last stand, survivability expert, concealment. After that, I would grab adrenaline rush. I would grab grease the gears. I like, again, just like we were talking about at Torigo and before, I like main battery specialist. This is debatable. If you want to put these points somewhere else, a 5% buff is not a deal breaker. I really like Fearless Brawler. I would highly encourage you to continue running Fearless Brawler on this ship. These 3 points, if you like them somewhere else, I think you've got lots of good options here. You could take Consumables enhancements. It would actually be a really good. In fact, truth be told, I should probably put these down here. I think buffing the cooldown on your Consumables and the duration of the smoke and the speed boost is probably a better investment than 5% extra on the main battery. So this would be probably how I would grind the ship out if I was just playing it to earn XP. Now, let's go look at Katarina, because this is the kind of build, if we go back to the build we were talking about, if you want to try things out before you go spend money on Adriatico, this is the sort of thing that you might want to look into there. Give yourself maximum range. Try Dazzle. The difference, Dazzle versus Fearless Brawler, is honestly a personal choice. I think I've been experimenting with Dazzle. Truth be told, I think Fearless Brawler is more reliable for what you're attempting to do. So, mess around with it if you have the points. Otherwise, honestly, I think Fearless Brawler is a better way to go. And then, of course, Adrenaline Rush, Survivability Expert, Last Stand, and Grease the Gears. You're giving up preventive maintenance, which can feel bad, but honestly, Last Stand, by the time you mix Last Stand with Engine Mod 1, this is one thing you might want to do since you don't have preventive maintenance. You might want to skip the Engine Boost mod for engine room protection here. This plus Last Stand should do you pretty well in terms of keeping your engine running. And I think it only costs you, hold on a minute. What was that? Oh, Engine Boost. It costs you, well, it costs you about 10 seconds of speed boost, but you've got 6 of them. So, it's debatable. I think you'd be fine without it. So you've got a couple of different captains builds here depending on what it is you're trying to do with the ship. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Let me take you now into some sample gameplay. Let me show you what playing Cuniberti looks like in the grinding configuration and the kind of things you can get up to, and then we'll come back here and we'll talk a little bit about the future of this video series. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to our sample game here in Tier 8 Italian destroyer Vittorio Cuniberti. Now, if you've watched this video series, if you watched the previous videos in this series, I should say, you've seen me play a game on Land of Fire before. We did that back in, I believe, the previous tier, Tier 7 Luca Tarigo. But here, this Land of Fire game is very different. For starters, we're spawning on the opposite side of the map. These islands make for a very different experience to play any destroyer in, regardless of nation. But the other is there's a lot more destroyers and light units on this team. I'm going to pause the game real fast so we can have a quick look at the lineup. Check it out, right? In the other game, the game at the previous tier, we had, what, it was like 2 destroyers on each team and maybe a sub, I think? I don't remember. Something along these lines, right? Whereas here, quite again, just like back we had at the tier 6 sample gameplay, literally half the team, destroyers and submarines. When you get this kind of matchmaking in an Italian destroyer, just smile and nod, knowing that you hold an amazing amount of cards in this game. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have an amazing game. You have to still go work for it, but all the field has been sowed, ladies and gentlemen, for you to have a good game because you prey on all of these other units, and you're really good at it. On top of that, I'm going to pause one more time while we share this thought. There are planes in this game. Now, as a destroyer player, we generally don't like planes, do we? And as a destroyer player, we really don't like Enterprise planes because Enterprise rocket planes against destroyers are horribly mean if you can land them. But in this instance, again, as an Italian destroyer, I don't mind it so much. I don't mind having yet another teammate out here spotting for me. Early on here, what we're doing is I'm intentionally playing behind this Shiratsuyu. I'm thinking he's going to go into the cap. I want to be about a kilometer or so behind him to back him up, right? How many times have we talked about early on in a game trying to play one of these little Italian DDs as like a second-line destroyer, backing up someone who's a little stealthier? That Shira has a detection of 5.8. I am, that says 8.2, that's wrong. I think I'm about 6.5. So it's kind of like, yeah, I want to be about a kilometer behind him, and then whatever he spots, I can back up. But the planes freak him the hell out. He gets spotted, and he immediately is like, nope, 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 I'm not doing destroyer things. And I'm like, okay, fine. If you won't do destroyer things, I'll do it myself. Which is a very common theme these days in random battles when I play destroyer. So, he's going to just run away like brave Sir Robin, and I'm like, fine, I'll go to the cap. I will do it myself. Now, the Cyclone is also not going to do us any favors.
Torpedoes to port.
Now, we don't yet know... Okay, let's pause again real quick before action starts to get really interesting. We don't yet know what we're up against, right? I have planes overhead. You can see the Lexington planes. The only reason that this move is going to work out for me is because the Lexington planes are up there and they're about to reveal for me what is happening. So the Lexington planes in this instance, you see them right there on the kind of the right side of the screen, they are functioning as what I expected this Shiratsuyu to function as. If you don't have these kinds of spotting advantages in the instance I'm about to show you, this is a really, 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 really risky play. Now, it might still work, but you're taking an extreme risk. So, I'm going to be able to make this work because I have friends. There we go. So, let's talk about this real briefly. The Lexington has now revealed for me that I have an Akizuki and a Benson in front of me. The Benson doesn't really worry me all that much. The Akizuki, on the other hand, is a tremendous threat. You can see he has a little more health than I do, about 1,000 points, and he has quite a bit of gunpowder. Obviously, anybody who's ever driven an Akizuki knows those things do horrible things to opposing destroyers. So I have to play this very, very cautious and very, very smart. I'm going to go ahead and pop one of my crawling smokes, specifically to take advantage of the spotting information that's being provided for me. I'm getting all of this damage for free right now, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Back-to-back 4,700 point salvos. And just like that, I've cut this Akizuki's HP in half. It's about to get better. I hit all 6 shells in that salvo. This guy has gone, look at my damage total top right, 14.2. So he started at a little over 21. I've now cut him in 2/3 in 3 salvos. This is the power of the Italian destroyer line. This, right here, taking your SAP, murdering, absolutely devastating the early game of what should be a predator against me as an opposing destroyer. Right? As any other light unit on the board, I should be terrified of this Akizuki. And I'm not necessarily in this Cuniberti because I have a spotting advantage with the planes, I have my crawling smoke, I have SAP shells, I know exactly where he is, and bam, just like that, I have a massive health engagement. 3 more shells. Now that he's covered up in his own smoke, we're fishing. We know he's not in the cap, so I'm not catching up on this. You'll see me take some shots, into smoke where it's like, well, he's obviously not there because otherwise he'd be holding back your cap points, right? Crawling smoke is over, but the damage is done. I now have a massive advantage in a future gunfight with this guy, and that gunfight is going to come very, very soon. The U-190 has the balls, my starboard side has the balls the Shiratsuyu didn't, so he's in here helping me cap. That's going to be nice because we're going to cap very quickly and then get on with the game. We're going to cut back the other way. I've got a Cleveland moving in. Let's take a brief look at the strategic situation here because this is actually really important. There's a lot that happens in this early game, and I want you to kind of follow along with where my brain is at here. The Mogami on the 10 line is not really relevant right now. My big thing is the Akizuki and the Benson in front of me. The trick is I have a lot more close support than those guys do, right? The Shiratsuyu, though he has not yet proven to be useful, is still here. I have to presume he'll at least, well, maybe I shouldn't, throw some guns into a fight should one of these guys show up. The U-190 helped me cap. He's at least making the effort, and I'm backed up by both a Maya and a Cleveland. I've got a radar destroyer nearby and a Veneto back there. So we have a significant numerical advantage here on this flank. My friendly Benson has gone out to mid and picked up a cap advantage, and so already we're one ship up. The Akizuki in front of me is really beat up, and life starts to feel pretty good. Now, did you see it? We caught a glimpse. Okay, so we caught a glimpse of a salmon over on the 10 line, and then the Benson has decided he wants to come out of the smoke. Now, these torpedoes look like they're a threat to me, but these are Benson torps. They're slow. I go ahead and pop a speed boost. We're going to skip past them. The U-190 is just going to dive right under them. And this is going to give me the opportunity to beat up my good buddy, the Benson, a little bit, which makes me very happy. Now, the Akizuki is trying to get relevant in this fight. Look at that. 2 salvos, and I've cut the Benson in half. 2 salvos. The Akizuki's trying to be relevant, but his aim is not terribly good back there. The Benson is continuing to not fare particularly well. He's trying to angle away. I'm still getting some chip damage in on this guy. But I don't want to tangle with an Akizuki that I can't see. Right? The longer I hang in that fight, the more it begins to advantage him, and I don't want that. I don't want to give up that much health this early. Okay, I'm going to pause again. Already, I've got 30k damage on high-value targets, the Benson and the Akizuki. But remember what's in front of me. We saw that salmon. We caught a glimpse of the salmon over here. Let's see if he's still around. I'm thinking that he's cut into this gap over here. That's why you're seeing me make this turn to starboard. But in a moment, he's going to pop out directly in front of me.
Engine boost
and I'm going to be like, oh, really? Wow, aren't you bold, sir? This salmon's encounter is going to turn out to be, yep, there he is. This is an example of yet another submarine player who just doesn't, in my mind, understand the class, right? There are 2 destroyers here. Yeah, you're going to get off a torpedo attack, but it's going to be quite literally the last thing you do. Because between me and the Shira and the Cleveland and the Maya and the Veneto, like, you're in a 5-on-1 encounter here. We can't see you, but I know where you are, and I also know that you're not that fast. So, let's talk about depth charge patterns here for a minute, okay? One of the things that I'm doing right now, along with the Shira, is that I am intentionally laying a pattern crosswise across his axis of advance to discourage him from continuing to press forward. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come to starboard. I'm trying to basically make a little wall of depth charge that says, you don't want to come this way. And I am catching him with some. We're going to turn back to starboard, and we're going to keep dropping these. Oh, you see the smoke? You see the oil slick right there? Yep, he's right there. I'm literally dropping these around him here. And yeah, that was just such a terrible play for him. I don't know why you would throw your ship away like that, but here we are. Okay, we're not even 5 minutes into this game, and I keep having to, well, we're a little over 5 minutes, but I keep having to pause it because there's so much going on. The Mogami and the Akizuki have now snuggled up behind this smoke cloud over here. Mogami's firing penalty, even if those are 155s, which it looks like they are, I should be able to pick him up through that smoke. We're going to get up here and give it a shot. Plus, the Akizuki, pretty low, right? I know that because I did most of that damage to that guy. He's on about 5k over there. That's a winnable engagement. The Benson died. I'm not even sure what killed him anymore. Maybe some rockets. I don't know, but he's out. So, on this half of the board now, the Mogami and the Akizuki are basically it. We're going to start with the torpedoes. Italian torpedoes are slow. You have to provide them with plenty of time. But that Mogami is just kind of camped back there. So I'm leading these on the assumption that he's going to just chill. He's going to stay there. I'm assuming he's reversing. So he's going to get the first rack out was to where I guess the aft of where I thought he was going to be. And then I led the other rack on the presumption that maybe he's got his hydro up, maybe he spots the other one, he turns his engines on, and then he'll drive right into those. That's the thought process there. So now I'm picking up the Mogami through his smoke firing penalty, and there's the Akizuki. I'm not quite sure how he's spotted. Maybe hydro, maybe radar. I get another good salvo into him. The torpedoes are coming in. The Mogami's going to eat 2 of these. That's not going to kill him, but it's going to leave him really banged up. We're going to try and get this Akizuki. I thought that first salvo was going to get him. Nope. He's left on 56 HP. Just enough for him to get one more salvo into me. He and the Mogami. So, yeah, that hurt a little bit. I paid for that. But we are absolutely going to clean this up here in a moment. A little more chip damage from the Cleveland, but I get that kill, and off we go. All right, so quick recap here, right? There's been a lot to unpack here in the first 7.5 minutes of this game. What did we do? We beat the holy howling bejesus out of the things that I should be murdering, right? Opposing destroyers. We depth charged an out-of-position submarine. We cleaned up an out-of-position and stationary cruiser. I did catastrophic damage to that Benson who somebody else picked the kill up on. I am doing exactly the role that I am meant to do in this game. Now, strategically, let's talk about where we're at, because this is where it gets weird. 7.5 minutes, the enemy team is now missing 8 ships. 8 ships have not lasted 8 minutes. We've killed an average of a ship a minute, which is absolutely insane given that you don't even start shooting at each other for the first probably 90 seconds of the game. But the opposing team not exactly covering itself in glory. Here's the trick. We only have 2 surviving ships on the other half of the map. All our firepower is here. The Cleveland behind me is gone. I have the Maya, who's been playing way in the back. The Veneto's moving up. The U-190's doing his thing. And this little Shiratsuyu is nearby doing whatever it is he's doing. So now we have to cut through the middle of the map to become relevant again. Now, the enemy team, we can very clearly see the Lahardi. Our Lexington is sailing to his death because apparently he can't read a map. And the California has been trying to get away, but he's sort of left on his own over there. He can't support the carrier. He's presumably in the gun duel with the Lahardi, which is odd, but okay. And the Enterprise is bringing in bomber planes for him. If I'm the Enterprise, I'm not excited about this, right? California has decent AA mounts, and I think she gets defensive fire, so, I mean, whatever, but it is what it is. I popped a speed boost to try to cut back to mid. The Cyclone is setting in now. As a Cuniberti, we don't really care all that much, do we? What's my gun range? 7.8. 7.8 is my gun range, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. So if I can see it, I can shoot it. 8-kilometer spotting at a Cyclone. I'm fine. Cyclones are really, really, really irritating for almost every other class of ships in the game. As Italian destroyers, we don't care. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Not a whole lot happens for a spell. All the excitement... hold on. There we go. I find the correct control. All the excitement has happened for a while. Now, I'm going to cut through mid on the assumption that this Lahardi is going to try and come back to B. The U-190 is working my left flank, so I'm hoping that either he or I will get a glimpse of this guy. The California obviously never touched his rudder, as you can tell, and ate a whole mess of torpedoes and died. Who could have predicted it? So now we're only 1 ship up. We have a decent points lead, about 340 points or so. Plenty of time on the clock. But you can see, look how spread out the team is. As I get detected. We're going to talk about this in a minute. But look how spread out the team is. The Veneto's with me. The Maya's been playing in the back all game. The Shiratsuyu is way out on the left flank doing God knows what. And the U-190 is at least up here trying. Now, what you're going to notice over the next few minutes, I'm going to hit this now because I'm going to be talking about other things over these next couple engagements. The U-190 and the Shiratsuyu have already seemingly decided it's time to go carrier hunting. And it's guys, we've got a game to win. They're not interested. Me and the Veneto are trying to play the objective. They don't care. Which is really irritating, by the way. Just as a fellow destroyer, just please don't do this. This makes me angry. Okay, let's get back to the game. So I'm spotted. There's Lahardi right in front of me, as I expected. He's coming back to try to cap. And this is a gunfight. This guy cannot win. Oh, I'm going to take damage. 100%. I'm going to take damage. But he can't win this game. He can't win this fight. Now, again, what happened here? How am I spotting him? He fired his guns, didn't he? The U-190's on the surface. The Veneto behind me might actually be occluded by my smoke. I don't know, but the U-190 is my spotter right here, right now. I have friends I can spot. I can avoid this damage. I pop the smoke, and away we go. Veneto comes in with a nice SAP hit. We're going to clean this guy up, and just like that, we're back to a 2-ship lead. My A's ticking over these fighters that got dumped over my noggin, because that's what you do. Why not? And as I always like to say, right? Cuniberti's AA is nothing to get excited about, but it's more than sufficient to murder fighters that get dumped over your head.
Smoke screen set.
9 minutes to play. It's now a 400-point lead and growing. The Veneto continuing to get harassed by the Enterprise, and I'm sort of out here on my own. Now, the one unit that nobody has seen this entire game, where is the Le Terrible, the World Wonders? And so we know where the Rook was, and I'm looking at the Rook going, you're so far out of position, I'm not really concerned about you. I go ahead and pop a speed boost. You can see that there. I've got plenty of them, and they come back quick enough these days. Nice change to the line, I might add. But the Enterprise has to believe I'm coming, has to suspect that I'm coming. Certainly caught a glimpse of me a minute ago. He's going to bring in the torpedo planes. He is going to pick me up on the surface here in just a moment, right about there. At that point, I'll turn my AA on, and his torpedoes do not frighten me all that much, really, because, well, they just don't. I have far, far too many other tools that I can use to outrun him. My speed boost is down, but my native speed is already faster than his torpedoes. You saw this earlier, that Luca Trigo game, right? The German, I think it was the Lowenart torpedoes trying to torpedo me from astern. This guy's going to try the exact same trick, and I just don't care. It's just not relevant. Now, I have two options here. I can speed up or I can slow down. I'm going to go ahead and slow down. Mostly because I'm trying to get into this cap anyway. But as I speed back up, it's pretty clear that it's like, no, this is not a concern. Now, he's bringing the rockets back, and I'm giving you more information than I should. So a couple mistakes are being made here by me. Let's point them out. One, I took a gun salvo there that I couldn't hit. He was at like 7.7 when I fired those shells. Those shells are never going to land. He's traveling away from me. The other is by firing. Well, my AA is still on, so that rocket planes can see me farther out than they should. And I fired my guns. Again, the rocket planes can see me farther out than I should. I have a smoke left. Why haven't I used it? It's a good question, Raptor. Why haven't you used it? I don't know. I should have, and I didn't. I do land some shells, but no damage, right? Like, they all ricochet, the angle's terrible, etc., etc., etc. Those torpedoes I throw is luck chuck, but they're so slow, they're probably not going to be all that relevant. And now, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. I don't realize it. I don't realize it until this moment. I'm so focused on the rocket attack, but look who showed up on the minimap. The Tarib. The AFK Tarib has been AFK for 13 minutes, and now he's finally here. So now I'm finally going to realize the pickle that I'm in and be like, oh, I'm now in a 2-on-1 with no help nearby. Nobody can see me, nothing. It's time to go be somewhere else. And that's what we're going to do. You can see there's some rockets splashing in the smoke off to my side. I'm still trying to cap. Now, this is a foolish move on my part. Again, this is another mistake I'm making. I'm still trying to cap. I should have simply just turned and run back due east, closer to the Veneto, closer to the Maya. But I'm still determined to hold back these cap points and win the game. I'm making the cardinal sin in a destroyer, ladies and gentlemen. I am considering trading my ship for a capture zone. Never, ever, ever do this. I've played a pretty good game up to this point. But in this exact instance, we're about to make a fatal mistake. Again, I'm so tunnel-visioned on the Tarib. In front of me, look at the mini-map. I don't even notice the Rook. It's not until in a minute when the Rook absolutely destroys me that I'm like, what did he... Oh. I think I'm in a gunfight with the Tarib, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, wait. Yep. So, I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this game. We win. But I think the point is made, okay? Cuniberti has all the tools that you need to murder opposing destroyers, to murder opposing light units, to be relevant with the speed boost, the flexibility. You can be all over the map. She is fabulous in these situations. Again, look at the Shira and the U-190, still chasing a carrier that ceased to be relevant a long time ago. But, right, Cuniberti is she's still a destroyer, isn't she? She still can be fragile. She can still get caught out. she's still not terribly difficult to kill when you put her in a situation where she is grossly outnumbered. 2, 3, 4 opponents shooting at her. It's only a matter of time. So let's speed this up here. Get to the end of this game because, well, my submarine and destroyer can't really lead torpedoes, but that's okay. We're gonna win this game here for a nice little solid tidy XP result. So yeah, nice pile of credits. Again, how many times do we keep saying it? I'm gonna keep saying it. Italian destroyers, you will probably not win many damage total races. Again, only 62k, but a full cap, 4 kills. This is the big one, right? What am I doing? I'm out there. I'm cleaning up light units. That's my job. That's my main focus. That's what I do best. I murdered 2 destroyers and a submarine. I murdered of the 6 light units on the opposing team. There were 4 destroyers and 2 subs at the beginning of the game. I killed half of them. And that 4th kill, I randomly scooped up the last little bit of damage on that Mogami that we put 2 torpedoes into. 2,300 base XP, 500 ahead, almost 400, almost 600 ahead of the guy in second place. Kind of says it all. Excuse me, almost 500 ahead, of the guy in second place. Kind of says it all. So yeah, we got 2 torps into the Mogami. Look at what we did to this poor Akazuki. Look at what we did to this guy. He came into this game with 21,500 hit points, and we took away all but 2,000 of it. And Akazuki, that's a terrifying gunboat if you're another destroyer, but not necessarily if you're a smartly played Vittorio Cuniberti. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there she is, Tier 8's Vittorio Cuniberti. One of my favorite Tier 8 destroyers, honestly. I didn't think I was going to love these ships, but by God, they are a ton of fun. Now, let's talk about what's next. You heard me kind of allude to this, right? Starting with Tier 9's Adriatico, the line takes a radical right turn. Like, they don't even play the same. They don't even look the same. It's bizarre. I have spent several months now trying to wrap my brain around it, and I've just about come to the conclusion that Adriatico is just not good. So it's going to take me a little bit. There's going to be a little bit more of a break before I can get that video made, I think. I'm going to try and keep it as minimal as I can. I have been struggling mightily to get a decent game in that ship, just a decent game in that ship to showcase for you guys. It's rough, right? And truth be told, the Tier 10 is easier to play than the Tier 9. That's how rough Adriatico is. So a little bit of patience, guys. I apologize for dragging this video series out. The top end is very challenging. I knew it when I started, and here I am still struggling with it. So please be patient. I'm continuing to work on it. In the meantime, guys, be safe, wash your hands, and I'll catch you next time.